Hello there, welcome back to the channel. This is Nerd World Empire, and on today's episode we are going to be discussing some of my personal gripes. I'm going to be doing some complaining. I normally try and stick to positivity and lore because, Star Trek's fun. It shows us a vision of humanity in the future where we are not just united with ourselves and mostly at peace. Looking at you, Mucky. But mostly unified, mostly at peace, but also at peace and unified for the most part with at least multiple other technologically sophisticated alien civilizations living in our local region of space. And we have gone forth and built a great alliance. All these things are very good. But that's not to say there aren't things. Let's face it, Star Trek can have its moments of not being the most consistent, kind of forgetting things. So this is just my personal list and they are just my opinions. You can disagree and do not mistake this for me in any way ragging on Star Trek. I love Star Trek. That's why I made this channel pretty much all about it. I absolutely love this franchise. But today I'm just going to do some nitpicking. A few things I personally find frustrating. Not dislike, just frustrate me. Whenever I see it, hear it, or whatever, I go, why? Just why? And before we get started, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons if you enjoy this content. And if you want to see more, hit the bell notification icon because that's greatly appreciated. With that out of the way, let's get to this list of frustrating Trek habits and things. On the topic of what I just mentioned, let's start with the first one. Inconsistency within the lore. What do we mean? We're talking, they kind of forget something that they did previously with a character or characters or events, and they just kind of move on from it. Voyager is probably the most egregious and probably well-known offender for this. I mean, they have massive episodes on character development for 7 of 9, and then it's like the next episode she's regressed back to an automaton, forgetting everything she just learned. The characters never... I mean, there is growth, certainly. Chakotay stagnates, and there's a great deal of we don't progress as people within the show. Events and storylines are kind of almost abandoned. They can't really use the replicators. It's never really used as a plot point. Look at Battlestar Galactica. How the ship starts to fall apart. How it needs maintenance and supplies and refueling. And now Voyager has these odd moments of going doing that. But for the most part, it doesn't, and it just kind of accepts it. It'll do a storyline and then forget about that storyline the next episode over. And that's not just being episodic, that's just lazy, and it's irritating and frustrating when you see a character who you like. You know these people have put a lot of effort into this, and you also know the franchise at that point already had 30 years of history behind it, and an exceptionally good creative team, and some outstanding potential for great storytelling, and it just seems squandered. The ship is always fine, unless you get to Year of Hell. Voyager's pretty much fine. The Equinox was a lot more believable of a ship stuck on its own, falling apart, running out of supplies. Your crew are starving and your bulkheads are falling off. What would you do? And that's a more interesting story than a lot of the ones we actually got in Voyager. And let's not even get started on another little pet peeve I have from Voyager, which is why Harry Kim never got lieutenant. And hear me out. They demoted Tom Paris. Okay? He did something fundamentally stupid, got himself demoted to ensign, but they re-promoted him. Now I understand aboard one ship alone in the Delta Quadrant. Back in the Alpha Quadrant, new ships are being built. Other officers are retiring and, quite sadly, occasionally dying. So there isn't room for progression. But they demoted Tom and then re-promoted him. He's not even a graduate of the academy. He was a criminal, let's not forget. He was in prison, he was a Marquis, he dropped out. He was not, by any metric, what you wanted as a Starfleet officer. Now, he certainly grew as a person, and that was actually one of the better character growths in the show. But why not give it to Harry? Where's Harry's promotion? The guy's still an ensign 30 years later. Prove me wrong. The next one, Wesley Crusher, and I don't mean the character because Will Wheaton, amazing, and Yeah, Wesley had his moments of being kind of irritating. He did. I'm talking about one specific incident that I find frustrating, and it's a trope in Star Trek of often not wanting to be, again, a little bit consistent with humanity. I mean, as I'd said in my last point about they're not consistent with a lot of storytelling, like the treatment of augments isn't consistent. I did a whole video on it once about how a group of genetically engineered humans were revered as like they're the next phase in human evolution. They've modified their immune systems and they're going to be great. But yet that's okay. But Khan isn't. Just saying. Dr. Bashir, he's bad. But those people were fine. Consistency people. But no, it's one instance with Wesley, and it's an instance again in Star Trek that they show these evolved humans. They never really show them as being really human. And he goes to a pleasure planet, and they're all like, yeah, we get up to some serious giggity here. And he's just like, he smirks, looks a little awkward and uncomfortable, and just says, oh, there's some things I don't do yet. We don't do that where I come from. What's wrong with... He is a teenage boy. I do not care what century we are in. Human nature is human nature. And every single time I watch that, I just want to reach into the screen, grab him by the throat and go, what is wrong with you? A teenage boy is a bundle of hormones. Now I understand maybe he's shy, maybe he's a bit reserved, but the problem, it's what it represents within Star Trek. It shows humans as not really being human. It's like a lot of the time Star Trek, Starfleet is the best and the brightest, but a lot of the time it seems to strip away a lot of the things that fundamentally make humans human. Human nature and instinct is always going to be human nature. Now I'm not saying he should, just because he could have gone and done that. If he wasn't ready or he wasn't willing, that's fine. But it's like it wasn't realistic to me, personally, remembering being a teenage boy. In fact, I think watching that as a teenage boy probably is the reason it annoys me so much, because I think back to myself, when I was a teenage boy, I was like, yeah, dude, what's wrong with you? Let's swap places. You come have my life. I'll go to that planet. Yeah. Like I said, it's frustrating, but understandable. But at the same time, as I said, it's not relatable, because it seems a lot of the time like Star Trek strips away the humanity from humans to make them into these peaceable, all-loving, all-knowing, all-moral humans. I like the episodes where we see more of the shades of grey. Discovery actually does that really well, as did Strange New Worlds to a degree, and a few other shows, including Lower Decks, which is where we're going to next. And that is my hot take. I don't like Brad Boimler. I don't like him. Never have. He irritates the hell out of me. In fact, he irritates me so much, I couldn't watch Lower Decks for quite a while. And eventually I got myself up to it, and I do enjoy it. I like all the Easter eggs. The problem I have with Lower Decks is that I find it's just Easter eggs. It's a wonderful show. It's well made. And it's no shade on the actor. In fact, when he did the crossover event with Strange New Worlds, I absolutely geeked myself into oblivion with that. I was like, I wanted to go back to that pleasure planet. That was amazing. And the actor is wonderful. I've seen him in Scream and other things that he's been in. He's fantastic. He does a great job. And it's not actually the character of Boimler in and of himself that irritates me. It's one character attribute that I find, again, frustrating. It's when you see him screaming at the top of his lungs. It's all well and good. It's played for laughs. It's funny. But you really think about it, he's aboard a starship. Military discipline. Screw this whole thing. Starfleet's not a military. Of course it's a military. He's there to do a job. He can't do that job because he's so emotionally unstable. He's screaming at the top of his lungs on the bridge because there's a Klingon bird of prey or whatever, or Pakleds even worse, attacking them. And it's like, get a hold of yourself. And it's like, I know they actually touched on this in Strange New Worlds, how Pike reacted to it. But at the same time, it's like, I just wanted Kirk or someone to come along and just karate chop him and go, dude, get a hold of yourself, get a grip. It's that fundamental part of his personality that I find irritating. Not himself, not the stories. I like all the other characters. I really love Mariner, and I like the show overall. It's really grown on me. Again, I will admit, at first I avoided it because I don't really like animated Star Trek that much. It doesn't help that when I was younger, there was a lot of ambiguity over whether or not the animated series, the original one, was actually canon. It's now considered canon generally, but I never really warmed to it, and as a result, I kind of got secondhand not warming to this and to, for that matter, Prodigy. But it has grown on me. But Boimler, still, every time that side of him comes out, it's like nails on a chalkboard. And I just think somebody slap him. I mean, come on, Cisco, you punched Kirk. Come out of the wormhole and kick his ass until he knows how to conduct himself with a bit of professionalism while on the bridge of a starship. Let's hope his his transporter clone does better in Section 31, which is actually something I think I'm going to cover in a video. I really hope they expand on that because I really want to know where that's going. Next, one of my favourite eras, or rather universes, the Terrans. This is a quick one. It's one I find kind of frustrating. I understand it from Mirror Mirror. But the Terrans are fighting each other again. In the games, in the comics, in the books, in the episodes, the Terrans are always fighting each other. Now, I get it. Nausicaans fight each other. Romulans have a lot of infighting. Klingons are very prone to it. And that all annoys me as well. It annoys me with the Terrans because I really love the Mirror Universe. I love all the stories that are like the dark, sort of unhinged versions of the characters we know and love. But, and hear me out, the Terran Empire, as I've stated before, could not function if they were always at each other's throat. It wouldn't make sense. We already know most characters exist in both universes for some reason, which is already a bit of a stretch and kind of hard to explain in universe particularly. And they've found circular ways around it about like temporal intertwined temporally intertwined timelines and things that result in favourable outcomes in both universes. But the Terrans always fighting each other, constantly killing each other, makes no sense. How would families form? How would anyone be born? We already know Jake Sisko was never born there. So it's like there'd already be massive divergences. How could they couldn't function. It wouldn't work. The Terrans would have to still, and we do know they do still promote for both a bit of favoritism, a bit of nepotism, but also for actual ability. And they'd have to do it that way because it doesn't work to be constantly infighting. Just a pet hate. I hate it when it's just a cliche. You want to see, you want to see Archer punch Forrest. You want to see him betray him because they're such good friends, and it makes sense because that's what the Terrans do. But it also doesn't make sense because the Terran Empire can't work that way. Pet peeve. Drop it as a story. It doesn't have to be every ship in the Terran Empire, every Imperial Starfleet vessel crew is not always angling to kill their superiors. Who'd want to be captain? Every single person on the goddamn ship would be trying to kill you. No one would want that job. Except maybe Captain Killy. She's awesome. Another one, which kind of irks me actually, and I'm sad to say this irks me because when this guy was originally introduced, I was like, awesome, he's British and he's the chief of security. He's going to be all like tough disciplinarian and really like stoic and emotionless and very by the book and orders and yada yada yada, which he was a little bit. But Reed's an idiot. Sorry. He kind of is. He's almost incompetent. You see him against the Makos, and he's pathetic by comparison. Yeah, he's got this kind of military discipline, and we should be doing this and that, and X, Y, and Z, and we should focus more on security, and I need more trained personnel. It's like, you need training. You're no good at anything. Everything he did, he fumbled. And it was really frustrating, because I'm British. And everything he did, he got wrong. And it was very annoying. Next, another one that's a little hard to contextualise. It's from the original series. And that was, we're in a hurry. Warp 1. Kirk, your ship's faster than that. You've got to be able to count higher than 1, my dude. It happened a lot of the time at the end of a lot of episodes. He'd be like, yeah, warp 1. Now I understand it. Before you say it, before people jump into the comments and say it, yes, I know. It's more energy consuming, it's taxing on the engines, etc, etc, etc. You're not going to go with the higher velocities all the time. But I remember 1 or 2 instances where they were actually in a hurry. I remember one episode in a hurry, and actually, I'm sorry, I'm sad to say, I actually couldn't find which episode this is. So if you know, tell me in the comment section below. I can't remember exactly what episode, and I did try and look it up. I went to IMDb and I was trying to remember, and I can't quite remember which episode it is. But basically, the Enterprise is stuck at sublight speed, right? It can't go to warp, and they've got, I don't know, medicine on board or something, or medical emergency, whatever. They need to get somewhere, and if they don't get there soon, people are going to die. Bad thing going to happen. And they're like, oh, we need the engines, whatever was wrong, whatever was stopping them going to warp. And they couldn't go to warp. And then, at the end of the episode, it's fixed, and Kirk sits in his chair and goes, Warp 1. And like, my God, I know it's the old warp scale, but the ship had a warp 9 capability. That's not even 9 times faster. It's actually degrees an orders of magnitude with every warp you go up. So warp 1 to warp 2 is not just double warp 1, it's more like 3 times it or something like that. It's orders of magnitude increasing. So every time you go up a warp, you go substantially faster. If he was in that much of a hurry and had been stuck in the behind, why not warp 8? Warp 7, whatever. Warp 1 frustrates me. It was all the time with Kirk. It was inconsistent. It was annoying. And this one, my final one, is the one that I find so irritating that it almost makes me sometimes jump into the comment section on, like, I'm part of Star Trek shitposting, for example, on Facebook. And sometimes, like, Janeway posts come up. And I like Janeway. I do. She's a good captain and everything. But it was one of those, carry on in a straight line, or dangerous side quests we don't need to go on. We'll go on the dangerous side quest. That's not even what's annoying. I understand that. It's a vessel of exploration. Of course they're going to do that. That makes sense. Stop making that stupid argument. Of course they're going to go investigate a weird anomaly, because a weird anomaly might get them home faster. The more you learn, the more you know. The more people you meet, the more technology maybe you can trade to get home faster. You know, if you can sacrifice giving replicator technology to some other civilization that has transwarp, and you go, you know what? This seems like a fair trade. I know it's a bit of a bending of the rules, but you're advanced enough. We'll give you replicators and holodecks. You give us transwarp. Great. All great dangerous side quests aside. That's not the problem. The problem was the Barzan wormhole, right? A lot of things are made about Janeway's decision to destroy the Caretaker's array. Completely correct decision. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Okay? The Okompa would have been killed and wiped out by the Kazon. She did the right thing. The Caretaker's array could not be allowed to fall into the hands of the Kazon. The Kazon are already a major power in that region. It would have turned a bunch of thugs and thieves and pirates into a united empire that would have overtaken the whole quadrant, potentially. She made the right call. Now, long term, could the Kazon have replicated the technology, used it properly? Could the Caretaker's people have come back and stopped them? Maybe. We don't know that. She didn't know that. She had to make a decision at that exact moment. She made the right one. But the Barzan wormhole. Yeah, the Barzan wormhole thing, right? She finds a planet with a couple of Ferengi on it. They're a pre-warp civilization. They're like, oh dear, we can't have the Ferengi exploiting these people. And she sits next to the effing way home, minutes away from the Alpha Quadrant, for days, trying to get these Ferengi back. You know what I know? That wormhole moves. It'll eventually come back there. You know when the Ferengi arrived. You know what year you're in now. Assuming, and it is a bit of an assumption, that the movements of the wormhole are predictable on some level, the wormhole has arrived back at this location after what, something like 5 years. So, come back in 5 years. Go home. Come back in 5 years. Okay? Do that. You've already figured out how to hold the wormhole in place. Do that. Get your crew home. The Ferengi, ripping off a few primitives, sorry, I'm British, ripping off a pre-warp civilization and stealing a bit of gold, okay? The damage is done. It's done. They're there, they're contaminated. Also, bigger picture, they are not part of the Federation, nor are they subject to your fucking laws. This is where high and mighty humanity, back to my original point, pisses me off. That's not human nature. It was not her business. It was not Starfleet's business. It was not the Federation's business. This race, embrace them as gods or prophets or whatever. Happy days. They were going to kill them anyway. Leave them to it. You should have just gone home. That decision was stupid. Every single person that died aboard Voyager, in my opinion, after that event, every single person who died in the Delta Quadrant because of Voyager, everything bad that would happen to that crew and that ship from that moment on was a fault of that decision. They could have gone home instantly, like that, and just come back for the Ferengi if it was really a problem. Or, because again, the Ferengi are not members of the Federation, and that planet is not a member of the Federation. You get home, Or you at least send a transmission through the wormhole. Send a shuttle through the wormhole or something. Maybe start sending a few of your crew through in escape pods and shuttles. You get a ship to go through. Send a transmission to Barzan and say, can you please just send a transport over here so we can disembark most of the crew? Because the Barzans were warp-capable people. Get them to come over, pick up your crew, take them away. Were the Barzans the enemies of the Federation? I don't think so. Would they have done it to get some brownie points of the Federation? To what? Send a ship to the wormhole? Absolutely. And if not them, you contact someone else. There's loads of ships in the Alpha Quadrant. Most of them are going to know who you are. You say, can someone just come and get my crew? If not, you just start dropping them on a friendly planet somewhere. Or at least you get some of them through on shuttles. You do something. Anything other than what you do, which is just sit there thinking, well, we've got all the time in the universe to get these Ferengi up here, and then what happens? The wormhole becomes unstable, the effing Ferengi get home, and Voyager is stuck chasing the wormhole. Do you know what should have happened then? She should have been deposed as captain. Chakotay should have took over and gone, you know what, you're staying in the brig for 70 years, because that kind of stupidity lands you in the naughty brig. That is my single most frustrating moment in the whole of Star Trek. I hate that episode. I hate it. I hate it with a passion. I can't watch it because every single time I'm screaming like this at the television, just going, what do you go through the fucking wormhole? Stop trying to get the Ferengi to come with you. They are not your crew. You are not responsible for them, and you are not responsible for those people. The Prime Directive doesn't apply. I don't care what logic she tried to use to rationalise it. It does not apply because nobody there was part of the Federation. No one. And she had other priorities, which was the safety of her crew and her ship, in that order. The Ferengi were lower down than the importance of that mouse that Tom Paris chased through a Jeffries tube. So, that's my list of things that I found very frustrating. I didn't mean for this to go on so long. I tend to rant. I didn't mean to, but I have. I'm glad I got that off my chest. What are your most frustrating moments in Star Trek? I don't mean things you just generally dislike. I don't want to hear Michael Burnham all through the comments, right? Just don't. Yes, it's irritating that she's the main focus of the show when every other Star Trek series is ensemble. They tried something different. It worked for some people, it didn't work for others. How about we just leave it at that? She's not a bad character. She's badly written. But the show overall I find relatively enjoyable. I actually enjoyed Season 1 and Season 2 quite a lot. I slept through most of Season 4, I'm not going to lie. I am going to have to rewatch that. But, yeah, what are your most frustrating moments or things you just don't like within specific characters or episodes or events throughout the series? Any that I've missed that are even more annoying than the wormhole thing? Or what's your wormhole thing? What's your real deep down dislike moment in Star Trek? Let me know in the comment section below, and like, share and subscribe. And again, hit that bell notification icon because that is the real subscribe button more so than the actual subscribe button.